Hello, everybody, and welcome again to a very special episode of the Real Collective Podcast. I got a haircut and look like a burnt eraser. My name is Brendan McKeegan. With me, as always, is my co-host, Sean Tassay. Sean, how are you?
I'm great. I didn't get a haircut, and I look hairy.
Looks like it looks good though. It's a good cut for you. And joining us today, special guest, our cottage queen from the Real Collective herself, Kim Dole. Kim, how are you today?
I'm good, thanks, guys.
Wonderful. Thank you.
I also did not get a haircut.
That's okay.
Okay. Was it a requirement? I missed the memo entirely.
No. Why mess with perfection, huh?
Hey. No.
Oh, God. It's a good one. Guys, if you're enjoying the podcast, if you've listened to the other ones, please like, subscribe, and share this video, or download us on the Apple Podcasts app, on Spotify as well. We're going to be in there. So today, like I said, Kim is the cottage queen. So what we're going to dive into is a lot about rural property, maybe small town living in general, and then things to look for in a cottage. Sean, you just bought a cottage. What was your experience like? I know it was on the Quebec side, but there's some things to look for there.
Yeah, absolutely. It was a lot of fun. I think it will likely color a lot of the conversation that I'm going to have today. My experience in going through the process of buying a cottage, because we bought in the winter, which is always a little bit risky because you don't really know what the water looks like. So, we'll talk. We'll jump into that and into the lake.
Perfect. On January 1st.
For my invitation, personally.
Yeah. So am I. We'll do the polar dip on January 1st as a team.
You guys can all have fun doing that.
I won't. That's not a chance of me doing that.
You? Yeah.
All right. So guys, today what we have going on is we're going to have a couple segments. We're going to also show you guys a listing video that was for one of Kim's properties that she had listed in Perth. So we're going to take a look at that one, and then we're just going to talk about what rural home life is like. Maybe not life, but what you're going to look for when you're out there, what Kim's experiences are with it, and it should be a good one. So what we're going to do is talk about the top 5 cottage considerations. So things to look for, and Kim being our expert on the team for taking people out and just having a general sense and a general knowledge of what's going on out there, and definitely more than I do. We thought we would have her on and talk about this. So the first one, number 1 on this list, should I go 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 or 1, 2, 3, 4, 5?
I feel like I misunderstood the assignment and didn't necessarily put them in a great countdown order. So you talk about them in whatever order you like.
Boom. Okay. So first, let's start with this one. We're going to go the top 5 considerations. Number 5, are you looking for a 3-season cottage or a 4-season cottage? Very important off the top.
Yeah, so it's so important when you first get the little bug in your mind of, hey, maybe I think I want a cottage, to really do some reflection on what that actually means to you and how you're going to use it. Some people want to be out there in January. They want to have Christmas at the cottage, or they want to be able to go out all year round. And some people are just like, yeah, we're going to go here on weekends in the summer. So people have different needs that's going to color what they're looking for. And so a 3-season cottage is exactly what it sounds like. It's something that's not appropriate to use in the winter for one reason or another. It could have no heat. It could have no insulation. It could be on a road that's not plowed.
Frozen water lines.
Yeah, any number of things can categorize something as a 3-season cottage. A 4-season cottage it's a house.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. So I know of some people who have made the attempt to make a 3-seasons cottage a 4-seasons cottage. My guess is that gets kind of costly. I don't know if you've run across anybody who's tried to do the same.
I have, and you're right. It can be very costly depending on what you're starting with.
Right.
So there's no hard and fast definition for 3-season versus 4-season. So if you've got something that has a foundation and has insulation and heat, well, man, you're almost halfway there. Some things are fixable and some things aren't fixable. So if the road is just straight up not maintained all winter, you're doing it yourself.
Yeah.
If you're trying to fix that, you're out there with the snowplow. It can also be really difficult to make some of the fixes. So something that is technically possible but really costly is if your cottage does not have a foundation, it's on like piers or blocks, and you're trying to enclose it in and insulate it so that your floor isn't just open to the winter cold. Yes, you can do it. It's going to cost you money.
Yeah. Plus, you got to safeguard it from all the creatures that are looking for warm places to live in the winter.
Critters, yeah, critters are part and parcel of rural life.
Yeah.
If you are not good with the woodland creatures, or more specifically bugs, don't buy a cottage. Just don't.
Yeah, right. It's still scared of spiders. Don't get a cottage.
Oh my goodness. Okay, so can I personal anecdote here? When I was a little kid, my parents had a cottage, not quite in the Muskokas, but like up there. And we went up there one weekend and we're like unpacking all of our stuff. And I think it was my mom who went into the bathroom and just spiders everywhere. Walls, the ceilings, somebody had laid a nest of eggs and they all hatched and they were all coming out from everywhere. If you couldn't deal with that, please don't get a cottage.
Yeah, I was going to say, did you get the fire insurance money for that afterwards?
Yeah, just put it down at that point.
That is nightmare fuel.
It is.
Yeah, definitely don't. Oh God, I wouldn't be able to do it. A room full of spiders? It's torched. Fine.
So at our cottage, we've got people right beside who are our neighbors, and they're doing just that. Their cottage was up on stilts, and they've owned it for 40 years, and now they're finishing the basement. So they've got to lift their house out, dig everything out because it's on a bit of a hill, and they're doing pre-built, pre-insulated ICF blocks to go around in the basement. So from what I understand, here's the other thing about living in cottages is everybody talks, right? There's like, everybody knows what's going on with everything. It's small town living.
Small town gossip is an episode unto itself.
Yeah. So these guys apparently are spending between $80,000 and $90,000 to just put this basement in. That doesn't include finishing anything on the inside. So
that's honestly less than I thought you were going to say. And that sounds like they're doing it right. There are definitely some cheaper, quicker, dirtier fixes for that problem, but that's how you do it right.
Yeah, that's fair.
I'm going to move on to the next one because I feel like this one is also important. They're all important. I'm just putting them in a random order. So we're going to go with number 4, septic and water. What the septic and water situation is like. Why is that an important thing? Okay,
so in cottages, you have a wonderful world of options that you may encounter. Because, okay, so most people, when they think of a cottage, they think of something waterfront, right? Now, when you're close enough to the water, your ability to put in full septic and well systems can and may be diminished. So depending on setbacks from the water, on your tree cover, on municipal bylaws, on conservation authority jurisdictions, all sorts of things, you may be extremely limited with what you can do. You might have a well, which is a really good permanent solution and kind of what you want if you're going the 4-season route. Or you might have what is called lake intake. That's what it sounds like. So there's tubes and a pump, and I mean, you can put heaters on the lines to make it 4-season, but it is not as permanent a solution as a well. The other thing that I see a lot in cottages is separate septic differences. So if you're in a really treed area, or depending on what the conservation authority will let you do, you may or may not be able to have a septic bed. They're really big. They take up a lot of space. So what I very often see in cottage properties is what's called a holding tank. And you have to get the septic guys out there, depending on your usage, up to a couple times a year to pump it out.
That's not a job I want.
We had the municipality come to pump out. We do have a septic at our cottage. We had the municipality come to pump it out, and we were there, which was unfortunate. And there was a little bit of spillage, and it's yeah. Some got on like my mother-in-law's car. It was not nice.
Okay, how much spillage are we talking about? That's not small.
No, it's not. It was just a little bit, but it was enough that it was not nice or pretty or smelled good or anything like that. So it was not a fun thing. The septic, we actually have our badminton court on top of where the septic bed is, because that's about all you can do with it.
Huh.
So they try to fill up the wrong gas tank, is what you're saying. Thank you so much.
Oh
Thanks so much,
no.
everybody. Thank you for coming today. This has been the Real Collective Podcast. Good night, everyone.
Yes.
Slow clap. Yeah, that's. I've had friends who have had the water intake. That seems to be the norm for a lot of people. I feel like, yeah, because it's just, I guess the easiest thing to do is just to throw a line at a pump and go, and as long as you can, obviously. All right, let's get that next one in here. Because we were just talking about the water. Number 3, we're going to go with the cottage consideration. What your waterfront area is like. Is waterfront important to you?
Well, and that's why one of the first questions that I ask buyers when they come to me and say, hey, I think I want a cottage, is what do you like to do, or what would you like to do at your cottage? Do you swim? Do you want to get a boat? Do you fish? Do you just want to sit and look at the pretty water? Because these are going to be different considerations. People who want to have their grandchildren up to swim are not going to want waterfront that is just green with algae bloom. They're going to be looking for something that's a lot clearer and nicer.
Yeah, maybe something with some sand, if it's possible, as opposed to like the retaining walls. A lot of cottages have a retaining wall and then a dock.
Well, absolutely. And the most important thing to remember is that the Conservation Authority, and there are very few areas in Eastern Ontario that are not under the jurisdiction of a Conservation Authority, they have a tremendous amount of say in what you're allowed to do with your waterfront.
Yeah.
So
Sean, do you have a boat?
You can't alter it.
My boat I have 2 boats, both of which are powered by me. So like this.
Canoe and paddle?
One is a canoe and the other is a pedal boat. Yes.
Yeah, got it. That sounds about right.
Yeah. So it's a lot of fun, but the lake that we're on is a big enough lake that a lot of people have boats that are motorized, and it really makes me want one. So that's a down the road acquisition, I imagine. But for us, when we were bought in the wintertime, we had to go based on photos that the listing agent sent to our buyer's agent and said, here's what the bottom of the water looks like, because we really wanted water that the kids could walk out into, like you were talking about, right? Thankfully, the reality of the situation was close enough to the photos that we saw. So yeah, the kids have a lot of fun wading in the water.
That's great. And you actually reminded me of another important point, which is what kind of boats can you have on whatever lake you're on? There are some lakes out there that are total no wake zones, no motorized boats whatsoever. Sometimes there's a horsepower limit, all sorts of different things that you need to consider.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it's I've had both. I've had clients and friends who have said, like, we want some sandy area, or they try to make it themselves, like carve out their own beach, and that's when it gets to be pricey and expensive. And like you said, you have to make sure that you have all the permits in place, that your reparation rights are there, and yeah, it can be a headache. So that's a big one.
Just to clear it up, and I'm sorry, I think it's called riparian rights.
Did I say reparations? Oh my god.
I wasn't gonna be that guy, Sean.
I'm that guy.
Oh my god. I'm like, what did I say? Reparations. Oh my god, we're so sorry, Lake. Here's some.
I mean, look, if you're adding,
you may not even own up all the way up to your shoreline.
Who let me talk today, guys? Who let me talk? All right,
Sean.
All of us.
Yeah, that sounds about right. All right, moving on to number 2, we're going to talk about the proximity to a town. If you're getting a cottage, maybe you want to be near some amenities like groceries.
Well, yeah, and that's just one of those sort of values and expectations questions that you want to ask yourself is, how close do I really want to be to stuff? Go ahead, Sean.
Yeah, let's be honest. You need 2 things. You need at least a dépanneur that you can get, or a corner store, because this mine's in Quebec.
Oh wow, you can really tell you're from Quebec, huh?
Dépanneur.
that you can get like the essentials at, and you also need a chip stand. Those are the 2 things.
Okay, yeah, chip truck, totally, like, absolutely necessary. And what? I can tell you where most of the good ones are in the Lanark area. I'm a connoisseur.
Okay.
Good to know.
The best routine comes from a truck. I will not budge on this point.
I've never gone to a cottage and been like, I need to go get food from a truck.
No. You don't leave from the cottage to get it. You get
it on the way there.
On the way there.
Okay.
Right. Yeah.
That's fair. That's fair.
Yeah.
Yeah. Side of the road stop on the way, or like right before you get to the cottage.
The other consideration is how close the gas. That's joking. The other question is how close is the gas station? If there's any like hardware stores or whatever close by, because for whatever reason, the cottage, there's always like little things you have to do, right?
And that's absolutely something to bring up, is that a cottage is a second property that you have to take care of. The other thing that I was going to mention is access to things like medical care. Somebody's jumping off of the dock. What if your property is just not in the greatest shape and someone hurts themselves? How close are you and your family to medical care? So these are things that we just want to keep in the backs of our minds.
Yeah,
that's a good call.
Because I and probably most men don't think about care, like a hospital, or getting hurt. Like all we think about is hold my beer and then do things.
I am the most accident-prone person on the planet, so these are just things that live in my brain.
Yeah, sounds about right. All right, and then I'm going to say the number 1 here that we're looking for your cottage consideration is the access situation.
Yeah. So we were talking a little bit about this before we started recording, and how you are able to get to your cottage is surprisingly something you actually have to think about. Is the road a municipal road? Is it a private road? Do you have to pay to have it maintained? Is anybody maintaining it? And some cottages are what we call lake access only. So load all of the stuff in your boat and don't go to or from the cottage in the rain.
Yeah. I've got friends who their cottage, it's on a lake, but it's only accessible by boat because one of the other landowners won't allow them they won't allow them an easement to cross their land, and they have a ton of it, but they're just being the snarky
ornery.
Yeah, really like the Scooby-Dooist villain. Just that kind of unnecessary bad guy, and they have to take a boat to their cottage, and it's tough when you've got groceries, you've got your clothes for when you're staying there, and you're taking them out of a boat and then walking them up the flight of stairs, which not so bad when it's just like a drink in your hand, but when you have like all of this luggage, that's cardio.
It is. It's extra preparation.
Yeah, and it takes much longer to get to your cottage.
That is
It's
the worst NIMBYism that I've ever heard of. NIMBY stands for not in my backyard. That's literal no road in my backyard. Not in my backyard, NIMBY.
yeah, if we're taking this very, very literally, yep, I suppose so.
Yep, that's what it is. And I think a lot of people maybe don't think that because like, oh, well, it's on land and the highway's right there. I should be able to get to it. But like that's stuff that you gotta look into to make sure of.
Not always. And sometimes I even see the situation that you're talking about, like, hey, the road goes right by, but there's just no entrance. There's just no access point. So you're talking to the township and saying, hey, can I please apply to put an extra access point to this road?
Yeah.
They may or may not say yes.
Right.
Yeah. And then if they don't, then you're kind of screwed and you're on the hook.
And you have
And-
boat access cottage.
I mean, I would maybe consider it if I had my own island cottage. Like if it was on one of those smaller, your own kind of islands, then obviously like that's the only way you can get to it. And you do get that full privacy.
Yeah.
But
Gonna do an off-grid thing.
yeah.
Very nice. Will I get invited to your cottage?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Absolutely. Preemptive before I've even thought about buying one, you're invited. So
Excellent.
yeah, you're welcome. Okay. We're gonna wrap it up. We're gonna take a quick break. We're gonna now take a look at a listing video that we did last year. It was a Christmas video for 29 Mather Street in Perth. This was one of Kim's listing. And when we come back, we're gonna talk about maybe a little bit more on cottage properties, but also rural living, the smaller town, specifically around Ottawa, but any kind of small town, and what to expect if you're looking at it that way. So take a look at this, and we'll be right back.
Today on a very special Christmas edition of I Love Listing.
Honey, I'm home, here at our beautiful bungalow at 29 Mather Street in Perth.
Oh, hi honey. I'm over here in our bright, beautiful kitchen with stainless steel appliances and this massive country sink. How was your day?
You wouldn't believe it. Since we can't have a Christmas party this year, my boss asked me for a way to connect the entire office.
Connect, like how our home connects to the garage with our beautiful breezeway, where there's plenty of room to have a mudroom or even a sitting room.
Absolutely, and I only have 3 hours to figure it out. 3, which is exactly the same number of bedrooms that we have. The lovely master bedroom, the second upstairs bedroom, and the third generous-sized one in the basement. I told them I was a natural at coming up with ideas. Like the natural light that fills this entire house like a warm hug.
Well, that does sound like a delicious pickle, but I think I have a big idea. Bigger than our complete finished basement, with fireplace, plenty of room for the whole family to sit back, relax, and just enjoy each other's company. And the idea's just crazy enough to work.
Do tell, you're always full of great ideas. Full like both of our bathrooms that are wonderfully updated and complete with finished laundry area. It sure is great to have space while the family gets ready every day.
Well, our home here at 29 Mather Street sits on a very large lot. In fact, it's so large, we could have your office party right here. We could keep everybody socially distant, project a movie, or even have some hot cocoa. Possibly even an old-fashioned if you're feeling a bit nippy.
And with how close we are to every amenity, I won't even break a sweat planning with running errands and everything else that I have to do.
Oh, if I had $1 for the hundreds of thousands of times we said we loved our home, I could buy it all over again.
And this market is hotter than our hot cocoa. I am gleaming like our hardwood floors. It's a Christmas miracle.
That's right, it is. And until the next Christmas miracle,
Sky Fire out.
Welcome back to the show, everybody. That was 29 Mather Street. And since that video was shot, that suit fits a little bit better now. So something to keep in mind if you want to invite me to your Christmas party. If you did like the video and you're like what you're seeing so far, again, like, subscribe, share, do all those fun things, download us, and that would be really appreciated. We're just going to kind of keep it casual for the next half. We're going to talk about rural living, small town living. Specifically, I mean, there's a lot of people now that they're working from home. a lot of people are moving further out of the city to kind of get what they've always wanted. Like some people, like, I just want to have more land. I want like those estate properties or anything like that. So I mean, I feel like there's a bit of a boom for people that are looking to go to these nicer homes in say like Perth, let's say, or even Almont's taking off, and all these small towns even east of the city. There's a lot of that going on. Kim, like, what's your experience with that? I'm sure you've had quite a few people that are calling you for that.
That's like the bulk of what I've done this year. And I find that it's so many, and this is even a little bit of a surprising demographic. It's millennial buyers who are leaving the city. They've realized in the pandemic that they're going to be working remotely indefinitely. And so they're leaving the city for that affordability, but also for that independence and ability to be self-sustainable.
Yeah, and I feel like it's giving people the chance to actually own a home when they
Yes,
otherwise might not have been able to.
that's exactly it.
Mhm. Sean, have you dealt much with? I feel like you're like a city guy as far as properties go and that kind of stuff.
More like a Billy Crystal when I'm out in the country, city slicker.
Yeah.
Getting my watch back from a cow. Yeah, I mean, I haven't done a lot of rural stuff, and that's why it's great to have Kim as part of the collective, to leverage her expertise. But I'd say you guys all know I watch trends a lot. And I know that the pricing in some of these rural areas has like shot through the roof during the course of the pandemic, where if you've owned a piece of property, and I think something that a lot of people are looking for is privacy, right? So if you've owned a private piece of property for a long time, the value might be significantly different today than it was even 2 years ago. And I know we've talked about how that happens in the city, but I think it's happening a lot in those rural areas and cottage properties. I mean, it used to be that people would say, oh, well, I'd like to spend, maybe $500,000 and get myself a cottage. Well, if you want waterfront these days, I mean, you're pushing $1 million for for a regular sort of basic cottage that doesn't look as nice as your house, which might not be worth $1 million. So supply and demand is really has been a really hot topic over the course of the last 2 years. So that's sort of where my mind is going in terms of what's happening in that market in general. Although I don't have the same experience day to day or boots on the ground as Kim does.
Yeah. So Kim, what was it that kind of made you, what drew you more towards like cottage and rural properties? What did it just sort of like happen to just sort of fall into it? Or is it just that's kind of your jam?
It's kind of my jam.
Yeah.
So I'm from Perth, and I lived there growing up. My family is still there. I'm still back there regularly. And just as a consequence of like my life, I know things about rural properties in areas that a lot of agents in the city don't know. So I decided to bridge that gap of people who are maybe living or working in the city and want to explore rural property. I'm able to speak to both halves of that.
And there's not a lot of that. There's not a lot of realtors that can do it, especially proficiently. I find like I've done a couple of waterfront properties now, or homes, I should say, and it's challenging because there's more to look into than just getting a home inspection and a septic and well inspection. Like you got to look at the riparian rights. Nailed it. You got to look at the access. You've got to look at the what their plan is for it, like you said, and then you got to look at the lines, like the property lines, because none of them are necessarily like a grid. They always just look like a spirograph sort of thing, and it's just that's what you have, and you can build on it.
Well, exactly. And you're also looking at conservation rights. You're looking at what you can actually do in that area. There's all sorts of different and wide like considerations that people never ever think of.
Yeah. So if I'm coming to you as a client and I say, hey, listen, I'm in Ottawa right now, I'm renting, or I have this condo, I'm working from home now, I want the space. I don't care where I go. I just don't want to be in the city anymore. Get me something, get me a house with a yard, a space, maybe not a cottage or a waterfront, but just something that's outside of the city. I don't mind being within an hour. How do you sort of break it down for them? I mean, I know it goes different depending on every single person, but
Yeah. There's a far more in-depth interview that happens rather than when we're working with a buyer that's, for example, looking for a townhouse in Barhaven. I am talking to those people in depth to find out everything about their lifestyle to sort of match make them with the region. I get people to like, hey, take a Saturday afternoon, go drive out to this town that you're thinking of moving to, drive around, have lunch, go shop, explore, and see if you actually like it in person. There's a lot more research that has to be done, and a lot more of a discovery process.
yeah, I haven't done it myself. I mean, I have a homecoming in Carleton Place, but even that I don't feel really fits anymore. I mean, I
don't think
feel
so
like
either. Carleton
so
Place
weird,
is so
right?
close to Canada, especially since that stretch of 7 is now like 100.
Four lanes and big box stores.
Immediately you're in Canada.
Yeah, yeah.
I
Close to there is not a bad spot for a cottage because you do have Home Depot and groceries on the way.
The Mississippi is such a destination. Everybody wants it.
Mhm.
I would say it might be a different conversation that you're having with somebody if they're moving in, sorry, not if they're moving their house completely, but if they're just looking for like a vacation property or a second home, right? It's a bit of a different conversation. And one thing that you said to me that really stuck with me when I was going through the process of buying the cottage, because I'm like, it's small, you know, and you said to me, who cares how big it is on the inside? You're there for what it's like on the outside. So, you know, what's
You're not going to spend your entire weekend at your cottage inside.
right? Yeah, exactly. I mean, we're spending as much time as we can outside, playing outside, right? So, you know, the inside is like, who cares? That's where you sleep, and sometimes where you eat, you know, and then you're outside again. So,
pretty much.
I would definitely be more of a Four Seasons guy, because the idea of having Christmas or a New Year's party at a cottage would be great. And I don't need it to be like you said, I don't need it to be a big place, but just something kind of cozy.
The idea of it is very intimate and like romantic. You know what I mean? Like it's very like, oh, I'm at the cottage. It's snowy. And you're snowed in, right? It sounds very fun.
We could go skating on the lake.
Yeah, that's right.
There's a lot of those around here. So have you been dealing with people who are looking for maybe cottages as an investment to kind of set up for an Airbnb?
So I don't see this much, although I do speak to people about this investment model fairly frequently. I think it's so interesting. I think it's fascinating. I actually want to do it myself. It's not something that I can speak to a ton. I believe your next episode is with the investment expert, so maybe you should ask him.
Oh, I will. I will be asking him. But I was thinking more specifically about cottages because I just feel like they're so, I don't want to say inflated, but they're just like, hey, we're giving you a vacation.
But Brendan, look at what a nice cottage is going to cost you for a week, and multiply that by the season. If you rent it still pays for itself.
Oh yeah.
But it's got to be in a really good location. It can't be this boat access only stuff. You have to stage it. You have to make it look nice. You have to do the same Airbnb turnover procedures that you're going to be doing everywhere else. And there are different considerations to modify your Airbnb business to move over to a cottage rental business. But a lot of the same principles apply.
The article that I read from the National Association for Realtors was saying that a lot of the people who are buying cottages now are doing it just for their own personal use, and they're not planning on renting it out. Now, I know that going through the process of getting a mortgage on a cottage on a second property, I had to go through and say, I will not be renting it out. So maybe the numbers are coming from people who are saying that they won't be renting it out so they can get a mortgage on a property. But who knows? The other thing is that we didn't talk about, I don't think, is mortgages on land and cottage properties aren't always the same as they might be on your primary residence. And so like a 3-season cottage, you might have a harder time getting mortgage on than if you do find a place that's actually 4-season.
That's absolutely right. You're going to face different qualification rules, possibly different interest rates, and land. That's an entirely different ballgame again.
Yeah.
That sounds about right. We are going to, I think, wrap it up there. Closing thoughts on rural living. Let's say you were going to look at one area that you were thinking, you know what, I want a cottage. Where's the good spot right now? And that's the generic question that I think a lot of clients would ask that drive realtors nuts. But do you have a personal favorite? Do you have a favorite area?
I'm a huge fan of the Calabogie region.
Yeah, good call.
I would imagine there's better value in Calabogie. I feel like the place that like the Ottawa version of the Kawarthas is the Rideau Lake system. So Westport and the Big Rideau and the Little Rideau, that's sort of like the place that everybody wants to be, close to Perth, close to Westport. That's the
on the Rideau system, you're automatically at a higher value.
Yeah.
Just boom.
Because you can get on your boat if you have waterfront on the Ottawa River. You can get on your boat and not drive to your cottage, but boat to your cottage, right? Mm-hmm. Or you can leave from your cottage and boat to downtown Ottawa for Canada Day, which there's a ton of people always on the locks.
Absolutely. If you're anywhere on the Rideau system, may I suggest that on a lovely summer afternoon, you take your boat out to Portland and get you some ice cream from the ice cream shop that's right by the docks there. Pro tip.
Ooh, that is a good pro tip. I hope everybody stuck around to the end to see that.
Let's go get it. All right. Well, thank you so much, Kim, for being on today. Where can people find you on the social medias?
Yeah, absolutely. So I am mostly on Instagram. You can find me at _Kim Dole, or you can visit my website at kimdole.ca. Perfect.
Well, that is it. We are going to wrap it up here. If you guys have enjoyed it, make sure you download us on Apple Podcasts, the Spotify podcast. You can go on there as well. Subscribe, and share this video. Throw it on in the background. You don't even have to watch it. It's more about the audio anyway. That's why there's no special effects here, guys. So we are going to wrap it up one more time. I am Brendan McKeegan. So thank you guys very much. Sean Tassay, your closing thoughts.
This is great. Thanks, Kim, for jumping on. I know it was sort of last minute, and obviously you did a great job. So I think there's a lot of good value in here for people to grab. I would say a big thanks to Kim and Brendan. Obviously, wonderful job as always.
Brendan's okay.
Yeah, mediocrity.
That's
My
right.
name is Brendan. All right. Thanks so much, guys. This is the Real Collective podcast. Again, check out Kim Dole online. And if you're looking for anything that's not in the city, and even if you are, check out Kim Dole. I'm Brendan McKeegan. This is Sean Tassay. This is the Real Collective podcast. See you next time.
Keep it real, collective.